Unseasonably warm temperatures for early October, growing drought concerns, high wind watches posted for parts of the country, and the active tropics remain. And that's what we're going to talk about in today's weather forecast. Welcome back, everyone, to Weather on the Go, all your weather coverage on this Thursday, October 3rd, 2024. And make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't down below. We do short range forecasts, long range forecasts, seasonal and monthly outlooks here on the channel, and much more. Like the video by giving it a thumbs up down below. And of course, leave any comments, questions, and concerns below. We'll get to those after the video. So let's dive into the forecast. Here's your GOES satellite imagery as of this morning into the afternoon, and clear skies, lots of sunsplash skies across the United States here as this time. We see a lot of clouds up here further to the north across the Canadian provinces. Also some cloud cover down here towards Mexico and near the Gulf Coast with some active tropical weather. Let's look at our low temperatures as we went out the door this morning, and we saw some frost up here in southwestern Canada, even freeze conditions as well. Some frost up here into portions of the higher elevations of the Pacific Northwest. And then some crisp air with 40s and 50s starting off across the Great Lakes region this morning. And we are looking, though, at some heat alerts across the desert Southwest. We continue with those excessive heat warnings in the pink magenta shaded color here. And then you can see in the orange, the tan shaded color, that is where we have heat advisories that continue mainly for California, but also parts of Nevada and also in towards Arizona as well. Here are your high temperatures out there. It's going to be a hot one. We're into the triple digits to 102 into the Phoenix region this afternoon, 103 in San Diego, and 104 in parts of the Sacramento Valley this afternoon. Look at the cool air up to the north. If you live in the upper Midwest, the northern plains, the Pacific Northwest, or all of southern Canada, temperatures up there will likely be in the 40s and 50s, even some 60s mixed in this afternoon. Some heat, though, across the southern plains. Temperatures there will be in the low to mid 90s this afternoon. Starting off tomorrow morning, another crisp start to the day across the northern U.S. and southern Canada into the upper 20s to mid 30s on average. And then those highs again will be back into the 40s, 50s, and 60s up there with those areas in heat, the 90s and triple digits further to the south tomorrow afternoon. Looking at precipitation through the rest of this work week, through today, the active storm track remains further off to the north across Canada and really into central and northern Canada. So it's way up north. And then we have the active tropics down here in the Gulf and the Caribbean here that remains with some active weather down there. But in between, the United States, very dry today, very dry as we go into tomorrow. Maybe a few showers in the southeast, maybe a few showers in the Pacific Northwest. But other than that, pretty dry to go around. Now, heading into the weekend here on Saturday, October 5th and Sunday, October 6th, ridge of high pressure, that's what you see in the orange out west, and then you see the low pressure in the blue. Notice the low pressure up here skirting by, kind of a glancing blow of the northern U.S. as we go through this weekend. And what that's going to do is extend those unseasonably warm temperatures through the weekend across the desert Southwest. Some areas could be up to 35 degrees above the norm for early October in the first week of the October timeframe here as well. And then you can see going through portions of the central U.S. and looking at those temperatures for Saturday afternoon, we're back into the 90s, perhaps even as far north as Des Moines and Omaha, and then into the 90s into Kansas, parts of Oklahoma and Texas, and then triple digits just continue relentlessly Saturday and Sunday afternoon for Phoenix, for portions there near Las Vegas, for the San Diego region, and even Los Angeles. Pretty hot there as we go into Sunday afternoon too. But the northern U.S., getting that glancing blow of that low pressure trough, we're going to see some cooler air with that. So temperatures to the north will remain into the 50s and 60s this weekend. And we have to look at precipitation with this trough because it is going to be a fairly strong low pressure system. This is down to 990 millibars. This could be bringing some decent rains for Saskatchewan and Manitoba. And then that will move through and bring decent rains to portions of Ontario and western Quebec. While at the same time, this is going to be putting down some decent rainfall here across the southern Canadian provinces. So we're going to be seeing a nice swath here between Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, and western Quebec that could be seeing upwards of an inch of rain And then some very high precipitation amounts near the coast of Alaska there and down into the coastline of British Columbia, all the way down toward Vancouver as well. And a lot of that will actually be falling in the form of snowfall and frozen precipitation that could be adding up to almost 80 inches, folks, in the highest of elevations there of Alaska and into the western coastline there, and again in the higher elevations of British Columbia and Canada as well. Now, with this system, with this low pressure trough that's going to be, moving across the northern U.S. and southern Canada, it's going to have a lot of wind with it. So we have high wind watches posted by your local National Weather Service agencies across northeastern Idaho, much of the state of Montana, and western and central portions of North Dakota, and a couple counties there as well into far northwestern South Dakota. And wind gusts on Saturday, Saturday afternoon into the evening, could be topping out around 60 miles per hour in those areas of Montana, North Dakota, parts of South Dakota there, and even into Idaho, and even some of that extending further north into Saskatchewan and southern Manitoba. And then that moves across Lake Superior as we go through Sunday and over the Lake Superior area, northern Wisconsin, northern Minnesota, Ontario, even the upper peninsula of Michigan. We could be seeing gusts 50, 55, maybe locally 60 miles per hour through the afternoon on Sunday up here. So I would imagine wind advisories, maybe even high wind warnings will be needed up here as we go into Sunday. Now, heading into next week, that ridge that's out across the desert Southwest is going to expand, right? We're going to see that expand across the United States, back into the central U.S., and even up here into southern Canada, kind of a blocking mechanism as well, because every trough that comes off of the Northeast Pacific is going to have to ride up over top of this ridge and then back down the roller coaster again across the Northeast U.S. So what this is going to mean for next week largely will be the central and western U.S. and southern Canada will be well above normal, unseasonably warm next week between Monday, October 7th and Friday, October 11th. A little bit cooler with a little bit of some troughiness across the east, so that will tend to have our temperatures below normal, but very dry conditions, right? We have a ridge of high pressure, a lot of sinking air, dry weather will continue as we go into next week. Any precipitation of note will be coming from the tropics down here toward Florida, and that will be South Florida at that, toward the Keys. Now, this is not good news. Doesn't bode well because we do have significant drought in very widespread fashion across the United States here. We are actually expanding the drought across the land of Lincoln here in Illinois. My area here in northern Illinois actually getting up to a moderate drought now, and then over into portions of the Pacific Northwest, down into the South, and even over here in Ohio, West Virginia, and parts of western Maryland starting to get into that extreme, exceptional drought category here where you're starting to see those cracks in the ground and stuff like that, and very brown grass and brown vegetation. So we need the rainfall. Hopefully we can get it over the next several days. We'll keep you updated on that. Turning over to the tropics, we have a lot going on here as well. We have major Hurricane Kirk that continues to spin well offshore of the United States and any source of land. Even Bermuda is very far away from this as well. We have Tropical Storm Leslie. First, let's look at Major Hurricane Kirk, because this is a max sustained winds of 125 miles an hour, and it's moving away from any source of land. It will still remain a hurricane, though, early next week as it approaches the western areas there of Europe. So we'll continue to watch that over for those folks. But we are seeing still a hurricane likely developing out of Leslie as well into early next week. But notice, even so, Bermuda and the Windward Islands still hundreds, or if not thousands of miles still away from this system, so no worries there. Now, the system that we have been watching over the past several days that had a 50% chance of development, then yesterday a 40% chance of development, now a 30% chance of development, so it's decreasing across the Gulf, but we still need to watch it. It's still highlighted here near the Yucatan and into the Gulf of Mexico. Warm water temperatures are exceptionally warm for this time of year. Now, Helene did cool down the water temperatures. We have seen some upwellings, but there's still plenty of thermodynamics here that if a system gets going, we could have a tropical depression, maybe even a weaker tropical storm. So looking at some of the ensemble members for the weekend, a lot of these are pretty weak. So I don't really expect anything to come about this for the weekend. I don't think really anything maybe early next week as well. If so, maybe a tropical depression, a very weak tropical storm, but mainly just a rainmaker for the Florida Peninsula down here towards South Florida and the Keys and western Cuba as well. And if anything, middle to late next week, we could have a more formidable system crossing over Florida. And again, at most, worst case scenario, we're talking a weaker tropical storm. We do have to watch Leslie, though. As Leslie starts to strengthen out west or out across the main development region and heads west towards the Windward Islands perhaps, or maybe toward Bermuda as a potential fish storm, or if it has any land interaction, we'll keep you updated on that as this is likely to turn into a hurricane. But right now, too early to call how close it'll get, if it'll even affect the Windward Islands or Bermuda. We'll keep you updated on that. Looking as far as rainfall amounts go for next week for Florida, well, North Florida, especially the Panhandle region, we're looking at maybe a trace to a couple hundredths of an inch, so really just enough to dampen the ground. The Orlando area, maybe just a half inch of rain. Same thing up there toward Jacksonville. And then the further south you go, so Tampa, but especially Fort Myers, Naples, Fort Lauderdale, into the Miami-Dade County region, and even the Florida Keys, we could be talking rainfall amounts anywhere from 3 to 7, 8 inches even here through next week. But this is over a 5-day period. But we have a lot of water in Florida from Helene too. So we have to watch out for flooding as we go through next week. And you bet, right here, we'll keep you updated on this channel. Make sure to subscribe to the channel down below. Short range forecasts, long range forecasts, seasonal outlooks, monthly outlooks, and much more will be provided for you throughout the year on this channel. Like the video, give it a thumbs up down below if you did enjoy it. Make sure to leave any comments, questions, and concerns below if you do have any. I'll get to those after the video, and I hope everyone has a wonderful and terrific rest of their Thursday out there.